everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be previewing and predicting week 14 of the NFL season. It's surreal. We're already in week 14. That's crazy to say, but it's the last week of the fantasy football season before playoffs. So it's time to lock in. It's a must-win week for pretty much anyone still in the race. And yeah, it's going to be a fun week. You got to listen up to our start sits kind of decisions, and it's going to be a big one. How are you?
Doing good. Kind of another rivalry week for me and you. Chargers versus Broncos Sunday. Everybody best be tuning in. This has been a rivalry for me and Dan, dating back to like 2014 when we first met. Some a lot of different emotions will go into this one, but you know, big playoff implication week for the Chargers and the Broncos. And this, a lot on the line, a lot at stake. Dan's actually going to be at the game. He's going to SoFi. He's got to respect him. He's making the flight out there, so he's going to go see Justin Herbert in person. So let's go, Dan. Big week.
Making the trip out to see the NFL Seekers Bowl, the Seekers Bowl. That'll be there actually is kind of some playoff implications in that one. So it will be a pretty big game. And I am excited to talk about that one. There's an interesting line in that one. So I am interested to talk about that one. And we'll get on to our kind of underdog lock of the week segment. And speaking of that game, we'll start off with the first one. Austin Eckler, lower than 52 and a half rushing yards. I think this is just a easy lock. Austin Eckler only has 3 games all season this year with over 50 rushing yards. I really don't see it happening against a pretty, honestly, stingy Broncos defense. It's a very physical defense that's been playing better the last few weeks. I don't see Eckler reaching 50 rushing yards against them. And we kind of both collectively together chose this middle line right here. CeeDee Lamb, higher than 87 and a half receiving yards. It's pretty obvious. It's CeeDee Lamb. He's in great form right now. He's absolutely balling. The last time he played the Eagles in week 9, he had 191 receiving yards. So I think that CD is a pretty safe bet to kind of go off in that must-win game against the Eagles. And so I like both of those locks.
Yeah, absolutely love him. If you've watched Austin Eckler at all this season, you probably be better off taking Josh Kelly's 4 carries that he's going to end up getting in this game, going over 52 yards. Eckler is just not the same. And yeah, it's pretty safe to say he won't get 52 against a pretty decent Broncos run game. It's going to be all Justin Herbert, in that game. Eckler is probably going to average another 1.2 yards per carry like he did last week because he's just pretty horrible. And then, yeah, CeeDee Lamb, big implications for the Dallas versus Philadelphia game. And who's Dak going to lean on? It's easily CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's going to get 12 targets. He's going to have to feast in this game. And, a very kind of weak, Philadelphia secondary. I mean, CeeDee Lamb can definitely take advantage of these corners as other receivers, and he has previously. So 87 for CeeDee Lamb with the volume he's getting feels like a pretty safe lock. And then the one I chose right here, Jordan Love, higher than 1.5 passing TDs. He's had over 2 the last 4 weeks in a row. Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Detroit, and Kansas City, which I'd argue the Giants have a worse secondary than almost everyone but the Chargers in that. And on a big primetime Monday night football game with how Jay Love's been playing, take the over. This guy's finally like hit his stride, and he's really turning into his own, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, he is playing such good football, and he is just throwing touchdowns the last few weeks. So I am very confident he will hit this. I took his over for his touchdown line in the Chiefs game, and it hit. And I'm very confident he'll throw another 2 touchdowns in this Giants game against a pretty weak defense in a game that they're favored to win pretty easily. So I am pretty confident in all 3 of these lines, and I think you should tell us. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, take these ones. This is the week I'm feeling most confident. I say it every week, but freaking put these in. If you're feeling scared, only put in 15. If you're feeling confident, go throw in 50 on this one because I feel like it's a lock. So come on, boys. Let us know in the comments what you think. But I think we freaking fired up some good ones here.
Yeah, I was gonna say this does feel like maybe one of the more chalkiest, lockiest ones that we've done. So I would tail this one of all. And we'll start. We'll get on to the game previews. We got a lot of games to go over, and we'll start with the Thursday night game. The Patriots are going to go into Pittsburgh and play the Steelers, who are 6-point home favorites, with Mitch Trubisky starting against Bailey Zappi. A beautiful, beautiful matchup. You expect a lot of points in this one. No, it's going to be a low scoring affair with these two backup quarterbacks. And I I don't even know really what to say. Like there's not going to be much you can expect for fantasy. I really kind of looking away from every fantasy option. All the Patriots players are hurt. Demario Douglas, Ramondre Stevenson won't be in this one. So it's a nasty one in Pittsburgh.
Just want to say something about our picks real quick. We just want you to win money, man. That's all. That's all me and Dan. We're just trying to be homies, trying to help out the boys, make some money on those locks. So, throw in $15. I'm confident. I'm confident in that. And not too confident in this game because it's pretty gross. These quarterbacks are disgusting. It's going to be just a defensive clash. Bill Belichick versus Mike Tomlin, two of the legendary OG coaches that, always seem to be relevant, especially with their defenses. Obviously, this year's an anomaly for the Patriots because they are tanking for Drake May or Caleb Williams. They might even get Caleb Williams at this point. It's ridiculous. So I don't know. Either this is just a mastermind by Bill Belichick or the Patriots actually suck. And I'm going to choose with thinking Bill Belichick is actually still a good coach. And I think that this is just them faking it. Hence Bailey Zappi in. That's their quarterback since Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. Can we just talk about Mac Jones was actually a serviceable, pretty decent quarterback who actually made the Pro Bowl in his rookie year. I'm not saying he was anything ever special, but he was good enough to win. And it seems like the Patriots have just done everything in their power to hurt him. Can we agree with that? Like they've given him no weapons. It seems like they just they try and destroy his confidence by benching him almost every game, mid-game for Bailey Zappi. It's just, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to call it a conspiracy theory because I have been for the last couple of weeks, and it's just all sus to me.
They definitely have the worst weapons in the NFL going into the season. Like they didn't really do much to change the situation around Mac other than give him Bill O'Brien, and that was kind of all they did. It's bad.
Yeah, are you in on my conspiracy theory, Dan? That's what the people want to know.
When we were doing our mock draft and I saw the Patriots were able to get Drake May, I was actually starting to kind of believe it. Like just seeing the Patriots getting Drake May, that just feels surreal and like it shouldn't be allowed. So yeah, I kind of am starting to feel like maybe Bill Belichick did want a quarterback, but we could be giving him too much credit and he could just be outdated. Like kind of, just his style doesn't really translate to this day and age. I don't know. It could be either one.
Yeah, I mean, he just might not. His generation may have come and gone. Especially that defensive minded football, just with a quarterback that carries you. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just all suspect to me. But let's get back to the game, and I'm going to take the Steelers to win in a really ugly game. This one might be lower than the Patriots last game. It might be like 3-0. With a Chris Boswell game winning 3-point kick. So that's all I'm feeling confident in saying.
Yeah, I honestly kind of have a feeling the Patriots are going to play pretty competitive in this one. It will be close because I do think it's going to be low scoring, but I'm going to take the Steelers as well, just because I think the Patriots are, like you said, they're maybe tanking. I don't know if they're even trying to win this game. If they were, I think they maybe would, but I am going to pick the Steelers. They just have more to play for. They're coming away with these wins at home, and they're coming off a pretty rough loss that I think they got to play a little bit harder for. But Trubisky is so bad, it's going to be close and it's gross.
Yeah, it's going to be close. It's going to be the ugly game of the week. We agreed. You don't want to watch this one. I promise you really don't. So let's just move past it.
Yeah, the ugly game of the week, and we'll hurry and cover the fantasy aspects for the Patriots. You just start Ezekiel Elliott, and that's literally it. Devontae Parker showed he can be a deep league dart throw for his targets, but that's it for the Patriots. You could start their defense. I think they're actually a pretty good start. And then for the Steelers, you start the Steelers defense. You start Deontay Johnson because Mitch Trubisky loves Deontay Johnson. And I'm really scared to start Najee or Jalen. I think if Najee doesn't play because he is on the injury report, then Jalen Warren's a great start. But other than that, I'm scared to start either of them.
Yeah, you said it. Not much to look at in this one. Be wary of who you start, obviously, but yeah, not really any option you really love or feel super confident in.
All right, and with that, we'll get on to the first of the Sunday games, the 1 o'clock games. The Texans are going to go into New York and play the Jets, and the Texans are 3.5-point road favorites. And this should be a fun one. The Texans are coming off a big win against the Broncos to kind of get themselves in good playoff positions and even kind of in the race to win their AFC South. So the Texans are coming off a good win with a lot to play for, going into a tough New York team that's going to be really tough defensively. I do think that the Jets defense can give Stroud some problems. I definitely can foresee it being, somewhat close just because of that reason. However, I'm going to spoil it for you guys. I'm just going to spoil it. The Jets are going to look the exact same that they have for the last 2 years and 13 weeks or whatever it's been now. And the Jets are going to be the same exact team, and the Texans are going to be able to score a touchdown or two, and that'll be enough to beat the Jets, as it always is. It has been all season. One touchdown beats the Jets. So I think CJ Stroud will be able to manage at least that.
Yeah, I think it's good rookie quarterback versus poo-poo quarterback. And I think good will end up winning. Yeah, I'm sure the Jets defense, because you never like to play never like to play a defense with a bad offense because they play really aggressive and they're scary to play against. So, the Jets defense will always keep it somewhat close. But yeah, as long as CJ Stroud, which I'm very, very confident can throw a touchdown and they can get a field goal or two, that'll be enough to win. I think you're feeling confident in winning this game at 10 points, and that's all you need. And the Texans are good enough to do that, and their defense might even score that for them. So, I'm guaranteeing if you can take the Texans defense to force a fumble in this one or get a pick, I would lock it in.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing is like their quarterback really has to play it safe in this one. He really has to play a safe brand of football. So I don't even know if there will be really any risks taken or anything. But expect Will Anderson to absolutely dominate whatever offensive lineman is blocking him. He just came off of a legacy game against Mike McGlinchey, who hasn't allowed a sack in, I think it's been like 7 or 8 weeks. Like Mike McGlinchey was playing really good football, and he came across rookie Will Anderson, and Will Anderson demolished him. So I think this Texans defense is one to watch. Like Derek Stingley last week against the Broncos. Speaking of him, he jumps routes at like a scary rate. Like it's scary to play against Derek Stingley. He just jumps the ball like at a Deron Bland type of way, but he's also a shutdown like blanket cover corner. So I love Derek Stingley and Will Anderson. They're making this defense scary. And even like the Texans offense last game against the Broncos, pretty solid, tough defense. Stroud just finds ways. He makes plays. He buys time, and he finds the open guy. And he's such a playmaker. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be the one to make the plays to win this game. It's going to be a pretty easy one.
H-Town, baby, let's go. From a fantasy aspect, we're feeling confident in starting Stroud. I think Nico Collins is a must start. I think, it's kind of tough to say. I kind of want to throw out Noah Brown. Obviously, it was his first game back last week, and he had no catches. But I almost feel like that's going to be due for a bigger game this week. So Noah Brown is kind of a borderline flex, depending if you have any bye weeks or anything.
With no Tank Dell, I think he's actually a pretty good play. With no Tank Dell in here, I think Noah Brown is actually a good player.
Yeah, I think he will. I think that goose egg he dropped last week, he'll definitely recover from that. And then, how are you feeling with the Texans running backs?
It's Dameon Pierce. I actually think Dameon Pierce is a start, really, and Devin Singletary isn't. I think whatever their bell cow running back is startable, and they proved last week that Dameon Pierce is the one that you want to start.
Yeah, and then on the Jets side of the ball, what are you doing there? I don't know if I feel confident in anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Breece and Garrett Wilson, and you kind of have to start them off volume and name, and then you're scared about those two starts. It's not going to be pretty. Breece Hall will probably finish with 10 points like he always does, exactly, and that's kind of what you can expect. And Garrett Wilson will be forced the ball. I guess we'll see if he can come up with some catches. That's about it, though. There's no ceiling.
Right. You're hoping Garrett Wilson, takes a slant or a comeback and makes a move and, gets a 50, 60-yard gang out of it. And then same with Brees Hall. You're hoping he takes a screen or something and is able to house call it, because that's, I feel like, the only way they're going to score. And you're just relying strictly off of those two making a big play.
Yep, and then be confident starting the Texans defense. I think the Texans defense can be like a game-changing fantasy option in this week to help you get into your fantasy playoffs. So definitely target the Texans defense if it's not too late. And yeah, I think that's about it on this one. The Jets might have fumbled not going to Trevor Siemian. They didn't even give him an opportunity. They gave him the last two possessions of the last game to just go out there and give it a shot. So kind of pathetic, but the same result will have of the last 2 years and 13 weeks will happen.
It's kind of wild. I do want to throw that out there. We've been preaching for the Stars for them to actually give Trevor Siemian a shot. They give him no first team reps. They give him nothing besides just, here you go, come in off the bench, fourth quarter, try and make something, with none of the guys you've been throwing to all week. Just try and do something, when the game's already over. And so that was kind of pathetic. And obviously, everyone knew Tim Boyle was not a for real quarterback. He should have never started. It should have been Trevor Siemian from the get-go. And they kind of just used Tim Boyle as a scapegoat to go back to their quarterback, it seemed like, which is just pathetic. You're going to get the same results. There's nothing going to be new. So, I don't know. Maybe they signed Brett Ripien off the practice squad. Maybe he'll get a shot.
Yeah, and I mean, Trevor Siemian had like one. I watched the entire game, and Siemian had one opportunity where he got to just plant his feet and just throw a football, like actually get his feet into it and throw a football. And he threw a dot. It was a beautiful throw. So I would give Trevor Siemian a shot or something, but it's going to be the same results for the Jets. And we'll go on to the next game. The Colts are going to go into Indy and play the Bengals, who are 1-point underdogs. And this is going to be a good game. Jake Browning really impressed me last week against the Jaguars. He completely diced them up, put up way more points than he should have in that game, and large part to Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase just making big plays. What stars do. They came through when the team needed them to make a play, and they have some stars, man. That Bengals team is going to have some stars, and they're playing a Colts team that's in the playoffs right now. They're playing for a lot, and Gardner Minshew's playing really hard. So this is going to be a fun game. How do you see it playing out?
Awfully scrappy is just going to be the word. Two backup quarterbacks, both coming off very good games. Gosh, there's a lot of backup quarterbacks playing in the NFL this season. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of the year of the backups. A lot of good starters going down. Just kind of wild to think about. But yeah, I mean, Jake Browning and Gardner Minshew both played a hell of a game last week, and it was quite impressive. And Jake Browning really came into his own. He was out there making, things happen. He got the ball to Jamar Chase. They leaned on Joe Mixon. They kind of just like did what we kind of expected them they needed to do. And he finally stepped into that role. He made some big plays with his legs, and he ultimately got a win against a really talented Jaguars team. And then the Colts, of course, just won a scrappy match against the Titans, and that was a good game. And it came down to overtime. So I mean, gosh, it's just two scrappy teams, and both of them still with playoff hopes. Even the Bengals without Joe Burrow, still playoff hopefuls. Obviously, you got Shane Steichen, in my opinion, the coach of the year. And so it's going to be tough. It's so hard for me to pick on this one. But I'm going to go with my coach of the year, Shane Steichen, and his Colts, because they are just kind of hot and they're rolling. And gosh, their receivers are really starting to step up these past couple of weeks, and Gardner looks comfortable. Their defense is playing good enough to win. So I'm riding with the hot hand. I'm riding with the Colts.
I'm actually going to go against you. I really liked what I saw from Jake Browning. It was just like enough for that to show me that he can just get the job done. He can be serviceable enough to get it to those stars. I think T. Higgins actually kind of helped just being there. Just his presence being on the field, I think it helped take a lot of pressure off Jamar Chase. So I do think the Bengals are going to come in here playing for a lot at home, and they're going to find a way to win this game. It's going to be close. The Colts do need to win, but I think there's some leeway for them to lose this one, and the Bengals have a lot to play for, or else they're kind of out of things. So I do think the Bengals do find a way to win this one at home, even though they're underdogs.
All right, you have to watch this one. We disagreed. It's going to be a scrap fest. And honestly, in this one, I think there's a lot of fantasy. I think there's a lot of people you're starting. On the Colts side of the ball, obviously Michael Pittman, obviously Zach Moss is a really good start. I mean, would you go so far? Are you considering Alec Pierce or Josh Downs at this point?
Alec Pierce is, I mean, if
It
you
was a
want
big
to,
game last week. He was a big deep threat.
yeah, he had 100 yards, and yeah, he did have some big plays. If you want to throw a dart at a big play, Alec Pierce is always an option. But with Josh Downs too, I don't really think I'm starting Josh Downs or Alec Pierce just because the last week kind of didn't give me enough clarity. I'm not really liking that. So I think I'm just kind of starting Michael Pittman, Zach Moss, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon personally.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely on the Bengals side of the ball, I think it is. You're not, and you don't feel confident in T, obviously. Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a very great game last week. Obviously, his presence did help, but we're not probably not there on T Higgins yet, huh?
Yeah, no, I think Boyd and Higgins, there's just not enough to go around. They're good in real life, but just not fantasy.
All right, you start your stars and you sit the rest. Is kind of where we're going with this one. Yeah. So Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman, Zach Moss, fire them up. It should be honestly. This could be a high scoring game. So I do like the fantasy implications on this one. And if you do want a dart throw, Alec Pierce, obviously Josh Downs could get a lot of receptions. Alec Pierce might be in for a big play. Who knows? T Higgins could maybe find his way in the end zone if you don't have any better options. But yeah, definitely be wary of them.
Definitely, and we'll watch this. I think it's going to be a gritty performance from both these backup quarterbacks. I'm actually excited for this game. It's going to be a slept on one, and we'll get on to the next one. The Rams are going to go into Baltimore and play the Ravens, who are 7-point home favorites. And I actually think this is going to be a really, really good game. The Rams are in the playoffs right now. They got a lot to play for to stay in the NFC playoff race, and I think they're going to play the Ravens pretty hard. I think they match up well. I just think the offense is kind of clicking right now with Puka Nakua emerging as a breakout star and Cooper Kupp playing good. So and obviously Kyron Williams, this guy right here, playing some really, really good football. So I do think the Rams are going to give the Ravens fits. The Ravens coming off a bye, they could be a little bit rusty at home. I don't know. I do think it's going to be a pretty close game. How do you think it's going to go?
I think it'll be a closer game than you expect, but I'm definitely not picking against the Ravens in this one. I'm not bold enough to do that. So I'm going to be riding with the Ravens, and I don't know. I do feel like they match up well. That their defense is going to give Matthew Stafford some fits. Jadeveon Clowney, I feel like has been playing some really good football. Even Kyle Van Noy, I feel like they're going to get after Matthew Stafford to make him uncomfortable. And just the way the Ravens play defense is just really scary and aggressive. And I mean, that whole Geno Stone, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey. I mean, they're just so solid. Kyle Hamilton, the man on the screen. It's just, I don't know. I feel like they will kind of shut this Rams team down, but I still feel like it'll somehow be a decently close game. But I feel like the Ravens will handle them with ease, but not as easy as they should.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth. I'm actually kind of struggling to pick this one because I do think the Rams will make it really close, but you do have to pick the Ravens coming off the bye. I think the defense is the difference. Their defense is playing really good football, so I do think you have to go with the Ravens in this one. And fantasy, you kind of know what you're doing. You start Kyron, Puka, Cooper Kupp. Now that he got that touchdown, you can somewhat be confident in that start. And for the Ravens, it's Keaton Mitchell. I actually think Keaton Mitchell isn't a bad start. He showed last time they played that he was kind of the bell cow and he's an electric player. And I think Zay Flowers will be a pretty solid start, but I think Odell Beckham is actually a pretty decent dart throw as well. I think he'll finish right next to Zay Flowers in production. So I think all three of those options are pretty good. And Isaiah Likely, if you need a tight end, won't be bad.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And it should be, an interesting game. I'm going to put it that I feel like the Ravens should win this handily, but at the same time, this Rams team is just so unpredictable, I should say. They're just kind of the unpredictable team at 6-6. You just never know with this team how good they can actually be and how good they can play, and who they can upset. So it should be a fun one to tune into.
Yep. And with that, we'll get on to the next one, a NFC South matchup. The Buccaneers are going to go into Atlanta and play the Falcons. And This one honestly does have some pretty big NFC South implications. The Falcons are only 1.5-point favorites. It's a really close game. This is a really tough matchup to pick. It's got to be like the toughest one to pick just on paper. These teams match up really closely. And yeah, I don't know. Baker Mayfield's been playing some pretty good football recently. He's been feeding this guy right here, Mike Evans, who's been playing really good football. Mike Evans is balling. He could be the difference in this game because he's probably the biggest star right now. And I think AJ Terrell playing is kind of a big X factor. He didn't play last week against the Jets, and I don't know if AJ Terrell will be back from that concussion, but I think that is a big X factor because they're going to need him against Mike Evans. And Clark Phillips did do a good job filling in for Terrell, but yeah, that would be a kind of a disaster matchup. And then yeah, this will be an interesting one.
I struggled again. This is not the only one. I've struggled with a few of these so far tonight. But it seems like I've disrespected the Buccaneers a lot this year, even though they're only at 5-7. I feel like I've just taken really bad teams to beat them, and then I shoot myself in the foot. Obviously, my hot take with the Panthers beating them, that was dumb. So I feel like I trust Baker and Mike Evans to be just quite frankly honest with you to beat Desmond Ridder. I don't feel like the Falcons impressed me last week. Obviously, they're playing a pretty good defense against the Jets, but I don't feel like they used Bijan like they were. I feel like they kind of just went back to what they were doing. They just regressed to the mean with Bijan, and they just were so dead and stagnant. And obviously, again, like I can't exaggerate enough, it's a really good defense, but it's just at the end of the day, you still have Desmond Ridder at quarterback. You still have Arthur Smith calling plays. And I think Mike Evans will make enough big plays to honestly, beat this Falcons defense. And that's who I'm going to roll with. So I'm taking the Bucks the Bucks in this.
Yeah, like I said earlier, these two teams are pretty similar. They match up pretty similarly, but I think the difference is Baker is better than Ridder by a pretty large margin. I think Baker's a lot better than Ridder. So I am going to take the Bucks as well. Their stars have been playing good. Rashad White and Mike Evans have been balling. Rashad White has been a revelation. He's getting the work that Bijan should be getting. And yeah, I was kind of disappointed by the Falcons against the Jets as well. They didn't give the ball to Bijan close to enough. And I do think you can expect Drake London to have a better game in this one. We'll go in fantasy. I think Bijan is a great start always. You got to hope for the better production against a worse defense than the Jets. I think he'll have a pretty good game. And then I think Drake London's the start. That's the only other start for the Falcons. I think Drake London will be, if you really need, I think Drake London's the start. You don't need to start him at all. And then for the Buccaneers, it's Rashad White and Mike Evans. And I think that might be it. I don't know. Chris Godwin's a little bit scary. He got that touchdown, but he's just not really looking the same.
No, Mike Evans is going to be the star of this show. And, if you have him this year, he's just, doing some legacy stuff. I'll say it again, like I said on last podcast, 10 seasons of 1,000 yards. This dude is special. And yeah, you're lucky to have him on your fantasy team because he is putting up numbers this year.
Yeah, the definition of consistency. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Lions are going to go into Chicago and play the Bears, who are 3.5-point underdogs at this one. And last time these two teams played a few weeks ago, it was a pretty close game. The Bears played the Lions pretty well. I think Justin Fields does have a pretty good game again, and this will be a pretty competitive game. I don't think the Lions are that same juggernaut that they were at the beginning of the season. They've really kind of tapered down. Their defense has really died down. Their defense is scaring me a lot. I think it's scaring both of us. Their defense has been kind of a liability, and that's how you beat this team. And I think that this game will be close and pretty high scoring just because the Lions defense is kind of making all their games close and high scoring. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I have no problem in saying the Bears offensively will keep up with the Lions. I mean, you saw it a couple weeks ago. It came down, to the final play essentially. The Bears were hanging in it with them, and I think the Lions defense is just kind of giving offenses whatever they want. And I expect a big game from DJ Moore. I expect Justin Fields to be playing hard. It's going to be a better game. Obviously, I think we can see it just similar to what they did last time. And with me saying that, I am going to be taking the Lions because I feel like the Lions are just a little bit better coached and just have a little bit more of an identity. and just a very, very solid run game that can chew up clock, and ultimately just probably wear down the Bears enough to where they can just squeak by this. But it should be a very exciting game. And with fantasy implications, I feel like, you're going to get a big game out of DJ Moore. You might get a big game out of Cole Kmet. Their running back situation is kind of a mess. And of course, the Lions, both running backs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you're feeling, brave, you can really pick a handful of one of their receivers. And obviously Sam Laporta is probably going to go off, but it should be a fun, high scoring game. Not confident enough, like I said, to pick the Bears, but they're going to hang in there with the Lions, and they're going to give them a fit.
Yeah, I just piggybacking off you, I'm going to pick the Lions as well, but it will be very close. I think it's going to go exactly how that first time went. It was kind of right down to the wire, last few plays, and I think it'll be the same thing, like a 3-point game, and the Lions are going to come away with it just because they're the better overall team and better coach team. But it is going to be a close one, and yeah, you covered the fantasy options perfectly. I'm staying away from the Bears running backs. You only start Kmet and DJ Moore, and DJ Moore is like a guaranteed 15 to 20 points, by the way, with Justin Fields thrown to him. He's just a great fantasy option that you're really looking forward to for the fantasy playoffs with Justin Fields. And then for the Lions, you know who you're starting. It's literally everyone, and this is a great matchup. And like you said, Sam Laporta is like a game-changing, like league-winning tight end.
Yeah, and circle back to Justin Fields. He's playing for his job at this point. So I mean, there is a lot on the line for Justin Fields. So I do feel confident in it from like a fantasy aspect against the Lions. If you were needing a streamer or something, I think you could almost circle back to Justin Fields in this game. I mean, he is going to be playing hard football. He is his job is on the line at this point with the Bears having 2 top 5 picks. Going into the NFL draft, Caleb Williams, a potential replacement. He's got to impress probably whoever his new coach might be. But yeah, I mean, Justin Fields is going to be playing some hard football here at the end of the year. Might be playing some hero ball. You'd like to see him run, for a fantasy aspect, which I think he will do. So just monitor that situation because he could be a good streamer, a good guy down this fantasy football championship run.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned it. I think both these quarterbacks are starts, and I think Justin Fields is definitely a start. I'm really looking forward to it. And would you start Justin Fields over Jared Goff? I think they're both startable, though.
I think if you need upside, yes. But if you're wanting to go with the safer floor, you're taking Goff all day long. But if you're gonna account Justin Fields running upside and everything into this, and say you're in you're facing somebody that's projected 10, 15, 20 points more than you, start Justin Fields because you could have a bigger upside.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident he does score in this matchup, though. So plan accordingly for that. We'll move on to the next one. The Jaguars are going to go into Cleveland and play the Browns, who are 3-point favorites. And this is another battle of backup quarterbacks. We're going to have CJ Beathard in there for Trevor Lawrence, sadly. And we don't know quite who the Browns quarterback is going to be. It's either DTR or Joe Flacco. We don't know if DTR is back from that injury yet, but yeah, I did not like what I saw from the Jaguars defense against the Bengals, against Jake Browning. They were completely exposed. They were getting diced up by him. He had like a perfect game efficiency wise. They weren't really throwing much at him, and they were just doing man coverage the entire game. So I do think this game will be an interesting one. I think the Browns defense is a bunch of dogs. So I think that with 2 backup quarterbacks in this one, the difference is kind of the Browns defense just playing better. They also allowed a lot of points last week though as well, but it was against a good Rams team in LA. It was kind of a different situation than Jake Browning at home. So I do think that might be the difference. And I'll just give you my pick right now. I'm going to pick the favorite, the home team, the Browns. And I do think even though we don't know their quarterback, I think their defense is good enough to kind of even out the balance with CJ Beathard out there.
Yeah, kind of in my head. I don't even know why I forgot. It's not like it wasn't just the most recent game we watched, but kind of just blank. Trevor Lawrence does have a high ankle sprain and is out. So yeah, I mean, is CJ Beathard the confirmed starter or just okay? So he is okay. Ooh, now I gotta think here. This is no Christian Kirk, obviously. So wow, the Jaguars just really, really got just ran over by a truck these past couple weeks. Um, and obviously the Browns are used to being run over by a truck. I mean, they've had, Nick Chubb, no Deshaun Watson. It's been a battle for them this whole season. Um, Gosh, I don't know, man.
They
This
could be getting Miles Garrett back from injury. I think Miles Garrett could be a big boost for the Browns too. It is a hard one to pick though. It's kind of a dart throw at a backup quarterback coin toss.
I'm just going back and forth between like positions. I mean, on the Jaguar side, I still feel confident in their run game with Travis Etienne. Um, oh gosh, this is wow. This is one of the only Josh NFL seekers stump. I've not struggled with a game like this for a while. This is going to be extremely close, and both defenses are extremely good. Jaguars have been forcing a lot of turnovers. They play a very aggressive style of defense. The Browns are obviously more talented on defense. Oh, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I think they still have enough offensive weapons. Um, I thought Beathard coming in for the last couple plays, minus that fumble, he was okay. He was 9 of 10. He had a big throw that could have been the game sealing win to Calvin Ridley. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Jaguars. I like their offense a little bit more, even with than the Browns. I know the Browns have Joe Flacco or DTR, whoever it is, but I'm feeling confident in the weapons on that Jaguars team and their aggressive style of defense to do enough. So I'll go with the Jags.
Right. And then for fantasy, you mentioned Christian Kirk's going to be out for really season for the fantasy season. So that is unfortunate, but that does translate to kind of this guy right here, Evan Ingram, probably taking over as their really main receiver. He's kind of going to get the most targets and kind of be their most reliable receiver. And I think Zay Jones will probably be the next down the line. And then Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley might kind of completely die down without Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if he and Beathard will really have the best connection. But yeah, I do think Evan Ingram is the one guy that you're most excited about in this matchup. I would definitely fire him up and start him. Travis Etienne, you're also excited about for volume, but he's taking a hit with no Trevor still, and the receivers are all pretty scary. I don't think I want to start any of the receivers. If I had to start one, it would be Zay Jones in a flex. And then for the Browns, you start Njoku, you start Ford, who's actually a pretty good start at running back, and with no Amari Cooper, I think that's about it. Elijah Moore could be a dart throw with Flacco, though.
Yeah, you said that perfectly. Kind of want to flip flop. What do you make of Kevin Stefanski as a head coach? You think he should stick around as the Browns head coach? Do you think he keeps them stagnant? Do you think he's a good coach? I kind of want to throw this question out here. What do you make of Kevin Stefanski?
I think he's a good coach. I think he'll definitely get another shot next year. I think he's a good coach. I think he's just solid, serviceable coach. He's super steady. He's not. I wouldn't say he's a bad coach or holding the back or anything really.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how I felt. But I was just like, does he add enough like electric plays? He kind of he just doesn't feel like much of an exciting coach. I mean, the Browns, he keeps them obviously competitive. They had Deshaun Watson, the full season, they'd probably be better. So obviously I think he'll go back next year, but he's kind of an interesting coach to me. I feel like he's just not talked about a lot. He's just kind of quiet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He's not really exciting, but he is a competitive like play caller. He'll keep you competitive. He'll keep you in things. He's consistent. But with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Panthers are going to go into New Orleans and play the Saints, who are 5-point home favorites. And I think we can both get this one out of the way. The Saints are going to win this game as bad as they're playing. We don't even know who their quarterback is. It's probably going to be Jameis Winston, though, because Derek Carr is in the concussion protocol for the second time this month. So looking like we're going to get some Jameis action. This should be fun. Some YOLO ball. He's going to be throwing it up, and the Panthers may get some picks, but I think Chris Olave is going to have a pretty big game in this one. That'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about. Done with my Panther hot takes for the rest of my life. They just let me down. Bryce Young's let me down. Jonathan Mingo's let me down. They're just a letdown. So I'm done with you, Panthers. You're not a good team. Let's look forward to next year. You gave away the first overall pick, which is brutal too. So it's an absolute disaster in the management side of things right now. I wish you the best, but I'm no longer making any takes on you. And yeah, the Saints will take care of business in this one. It should be a pretty easy win for them. But Derek Carr's brother made a really hot take that I just want to call him out for. And just gonna say, David Carr, you are dumb. Yeah, I have some really choice words for you, but that hot take you made was pretty pathetic. Maybe you should make a hot take about your brother being benched for Jameis Winston and keep Jalen Hurts' name out your mouth, boy. Because I don't want to hear that. And I don't want to hear that shit. That was worst hot take. And I don't ever want to see that guy on television again because that was wow. Just dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still confused by it. It didn't even make any sense. Like he didn't even give any reasoning or basis for it. He just said it.
Just have to throw that out there because your brother is not a very good quarterback. I'm just gonna say he's a scared quarterback. Maybe put in a guy who's not scared to get hit. So David Carr, your NFL career didn't last. There's a reason for that. Somehow Derek's managed to keep his and make a lot of money, even though he's just a scared quarterback and Jameis Winston's better. So I'm gonna throw that out there. If you happen to see this David Carr, yeah, that's my hot take for you, buddy. Not even a hot take, that's a cold take. That's just facts.
Facts from stores. And when you get onto the fantasy aspect of things, it's pretty simple in this one. It's Alvin Kamara is going to have a great game. You fire up Kamara, he's going to have a great game. I think Chris Olave also has a great game that could be some breakout stars of the week. And any borderline options on the Saints, I can't really think of. Taysom Hill is on the injury report right now. You can start Taysom Hill if he's healthy because he's getting a lot of work right now, but that's about it on the Saints. And for the Panthers, there's literally no one. I think Adam Thielen is actually a bench at this point. I think I would put Jonathan Mingo over Thielen in my rankings, which is crazy. So I think Mingo and Chuba are the dart throws, and that's only if you're crazy. I wouldn't really start anyone here.
Yeah, no, you said that perfect. Your fantasy options are Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, and yeah, I mean, I can't even roll with anyone on the Panthers at this point. I'm just gonna say you bench everyone. Chuba Hubbard borderline, but I feel like the Saints match up really good against that offense, and I don't even know if the Panthers will even put up a touchdown in this one. So we'll see. But I mean, it's a boring game. It's a NFL seekers sweep. Don't watch it.
Yeah, another one you don't have to watch. We'll get on to the next one. The Seahawks are going to go into San Fran and play the Niners, who are 10.5-point favorites. This is a better game. This is definitely a really good game, a good NFC West matchup. The Seahawks played the Cowboys really good last Thursday. They played really competitive. Geno, honestly, I would say, played like a perfect game. He played a really good football game. He was making some great, accurate throws and giving the Seahawks a chance against the Cowboys. So that was a impressive performance. I will say their defense has kind of just been fraudulent this year. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of pieces out there, a lot of star names, but Pete Carroll is just not really aging well in 2023. I don't really think Pete Carroll's defense is really a defense. I think it's just kind of a collection of names out there, and it's kind of looking like that. So I think that will be the demise of the Seahawks in the end, and this game will go kind of rough because of that reason. I think the Niners offensive weapons all click completely like they did last week, and there will be a lot of touchdowns for the Niners in this one. And you're starting to get scared for the Seahawks. They have the Niners this week. They have the Eagles next week, and they're going to start being in a bad position for this NFC playoff race. It's a bad spot.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. You made a hot take. It doesn't really even feel like too hot of a take at this point, but you said the Green Bay Packers will beat out the Seahawks, and I'm going to agree with that. And this game is not in Seahawks' favor. You got, the 49ers, who I think me and you are going to agree are probably the best team in the NFL as of right now, with that absolute statement win against the 49ers, or not the 49ers, the Eagles. My mind just played a blank on me. And it was a statement mean win. I mean, they went up against the Eagles, who are arguably the best team in the NFL, with their 10-1 record, and just quite frankly dominated them. And the 49ers are all healthy. They're healthy at the right time in this stretch. And there's just everything's going good for him. And Brock Purdy's playing good football. I mean, he looks like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, maybe even top. I guess at this point, top 5, because he's a true MVP favorite at this point. So, I mean, everything's rolling for the 49ers, and the Seahawks are they played a heck of a game against the Cowboys, put up a lot of points, but this 49ers team is just clicking on all cylinders, and I'm not about to pick against them right now.
Yeah, you have to pick this Niners team. Like you said, they are the best team in the NFL right now. You can't even argue it. I was saying it before that Eagles game, and you could argue it because of record, and now you can't argue it. It's inarguable. This team is. I think the argument is this the best team you've seen in the last decade? Can you, off the top of your head, putting you in the spot here, like what teams are better than this Niners team in the last decade, other than what the 2013 Legion of Boom Seahawks, the 2013 Broncos, like. That's all I can think of. And like, that's what we're talking about with this Niners dominant team.
Yeah, from a true no weakness on any level of the football, I mean, there's no weakness, and there's no weakness in coaching staff. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if there is a better team. There really, I can't think of one. From all aspects, they're just so solid. And if there was one team I didn't want to play, it would be the 49ers, just because they can beat you on every level and every side of the ball. So yeah, no, this team's lethal. And I think Brock Purdy, a lot of people hate on him. There's some reason to, but I mean, he really just is good. I think Brock Purdy, he maybe doesn't look like a NFL quarterback. Maybe he looks like a young kid, but I mean, he's good. He makes every throw. He can stand in the pocket. He can roll out. He can do the RPO. He can whatever Kyle Shanahan asks of him, he does it, and he does it at a high level. So, shout out Brock Purdy, just solid, and this 49ers team is just scary.
Yeah, he's doing such a good job to facilitate. And I mean, I think the best way to describe the Niners is they're just overwhelming. They really are just like scary to watch. They're just overwhelming. They score in so many ways. Their stars can take over any given play. It's awesome to watch. They're a great team. They're rolling right now. And we'll get on to the next one. The Vikings are going to go into Vegas and play the Raiders, who are 3-point underdogs at home. And I do think that with the Justin Jefferson coming back, I think that the Vikings are going to be kind of inspired here, coming off of a little bit of bad form. Josh Dobbs will be starting in this one, by the way. I do think the Vikings will be inspired to kind of go into Vegas and play some good football with Justin Jefferson in his return. I think Jefferson has to play really good in this matchup. I don't see how he can't dominate in this matchup. I'd understand if he was a little bit limited, but I do think that Justin Jefferson goes off against the Raiders, and I think that'll kind of be the difference. I'm going to pick the Vikings over the Raiders at home. Even though the Raiders do play well at home, the Raiders have been playing pretty solid football with Antonio Pierce coaching them up. I do think it'll be a pretty close game, but I am going to pick the Vikings and Brian Flores in the end.
Yeah, it's Justin Jefferson's return game. I can't pick against them. And the Raiders just cut Marcus Peters, who obviously didn't put much effort in, but he was a good coverage corner. So yeah, I don't know. This Raiders team just doesn't excite me. Obviously, we've talked a lot of heat on them. They probably performed better than what they should have this year, and props to them. Max Crosby is an absolute animal. He is a force to be reckoned with. But yeah, this Vikings team, I think they're, with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Josh Dobbs kind of playing, some electric football here and there, but pretty consistently. I'm gonna have to roll with them in this. And yeah, it is a Raiders home game. I expect Max Crosby to be chasing Josh Dobbs, but I almost feel like that can help Josh Dobbs, because when you get him uncomfortable and out of the pocket, that's when he turns into a football player, and that's when he's the scariest. So, I feel like when you get him out of that, controlled environment is when he thrives. And so that's what kind of gets me the difference. And I'm not too excited about Aiden O'Connell putting up a lot of points. So give me the Vikings and give me a Justin Jefferson touchdown as return game. Come on.
Yeah, I think Jefferson has a good game. He has to. It's such a good matchup for his return game. He's been kind of taking his time. So I think he will be fully healthy. I don't really see why he would be limited. So I am really excited for him. When you go into fantasy, you're starting Jefferson, obviously. You're taking his overs probably. And I don't know. Alexander Madison, I will say I think it's a good matchup. I think he will get the volume. I think he's a decent flex play if you need. I think Alexander Madison won't be too bad in this one. TJ Hawkinson, tight end one, you're firing up, obviously. And then the borderline option is Jordan Addison in this one with Justin Jefferson coming back. It's kind of an unknown. I do think you start Addison unless you have a better option in there. You could definitely look that way because he will get the less target share. But he's not a bad start at all. He's a great player. And then for the Raiders, it's Jacobs, Adams, and I don't think I want to start anyone else.
You're preaching to the choir, Dan, and I agree. So, I agree, and you do exactly what Dan says, and we move on from this game.
Beautiful. All right, we'll go on to the next one. The Bills are going to go into Kansas City and play the Chiefs, who are 1.5-point home favorites. This is going to be a really good one. I feel like these two teams play in Kansas City every regular season for some reason, and for some reason, every time the Bills come away with a win. So I'm just going to get out of the way again. I'm going to pick the Bills in this one. I was kind of inspired by the way they played against the Eagles. They played really good. They honestly probably should have won that game. They outplayed the Eagles. To me, I thought Josh Allen played really, really good. He looked like old Josh Allen. The Bills kind of just looked like the Bills, and they were clicking. So I think they kind of continue that form coming off the bye. They had a week to prepare for this. The Chiefs coming off a loss, and they're just in gross form in general. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the Chiefs, the run first Chiefs. They're just so stale on offense. They're so sloppy. They have some sloppy penalties. They're not really clicking. They don't have good chemistry going on offense because they're just not really pushing things on offense and gaining the chemistry. So chemistry, it's just bad for the Chiefs. So I'm just going to pick the Bills because I'm not liking the vibes.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game. That's all I'm going to say is this should be a pretty good game. These teams kind of flip-flop back and forth when they play each other. But I got one question for you. When's the last time you remember the Kansas City Chiefs losing in back-to-back games?
That I can't tell you. That I cannot.
That is the question. I don't know if Mahomes has ever gone back-to-back loss.
Let me ask you one more question. When's the last time Mahomes was on a run first offense?
That's true. And I was going to say, if you look at their last 3 games, they are 1-2 in their last 3 games, which is not a cheap stat. So times are changing for this Kansas City Chiefs team. It seems to be a different team and it's a different vibe. But with that being said, I can't pick them to lose back-to-back games. And, right or wrong, I can't do it. I can't do it. I think Patrick Mahomes will probably play good enough just to knock off. I could see this being a Josh Allen hero game and making some boneheaded plays. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a run first Chiefs team. The whole culture seems to be changed. They don't have good receivers. Everyone's dropping stuff. Kelsey's lost the step, but I don't know the last time the Chiefs have lost back-to-back games. So for that reason, I'm gonna not go against that juju, and I'm gonna pick them.
That's fair. That's fair. And for fantasy, you're starting every option in this game. You're targeting this game. It's going to be probably the top 2 highest scoring game of the week, and you're starting Mahomes, Pacheco, Kelsey, Rashee Rice. You're really excited for. I think Rashee Rice is a great start in this one for the Chiefs. And then for the Bills, you're starting Allen, obviously QB1. You're starting James Cook. You're starting Stephon Diggs. I think you're starting Dalton Kincaid, even with Dawson Knox probably coming back. I think Dalton Kincaid maybe moves down a tier, but he's still a start and he's still a good option. He's still kind of a receiver for the Bills, so he'll still be awesome. And then the last option is Gabe Davis. He's a dart throw. If you want, this would be the matchup to throw the dart at Gabe Davis, the legendary playoff game he had against the Chiefs in Kansas City. He could repeat that, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, again, you're preaching to the choir, and the choir is agreeing. So, exactly what you said. I agree, and let's move on.
All right, beautiful. We'll get on to the next one, the Seekers Bowl. The Broncos are going to go into LA and play the Chargers, who are 3-point home favorites. And yeah, like you said at the top, that is an interesting line. I think that the Chargers being favored is a little bit scary, and it does make sense. I was gonna say, like, I almost want to pick the Chargers because you know these two teams are probably gonna split, so it would make sense to favor the Chargers to win this one at home. So I do think it's gonna be a really close game. The Broncos coming off the loss, maybe Vegas has given up on them. I don't know, but I kind of agree that this will be a really close game. And yeah, how are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling like the Broncos are going to win, and I'm going against my Chargers. They have not shown me enough consistency, excitement. They never play team football on one side, and I think your biggest matchup in this game, and it's going to be ultimately the X factor, is if the Chargers can put up any points, is Keenan Allen and Pat Surtain. I know Keenan Allen does Pat Surtain line up in the slot a lot? You would know. Will he mirror Keenan Allen? Okay, so he may be more of a Quentin Johnston type, locking him down. But I think it just depends on how the Broncos defense fares against Keenan Allen, and whether, Keenan Allen's, whether it work his magic. I feel like that's going to be the difference. And I have faith in the Broncos defense and Sean Payton to come in with a really good game plan and knock the Chargers off, because God forbid both sides play complementary football. That just doesn't exist in their category. And I think Sean Payton is a whole 5 tiers above Brandon Staley as a head coach, and I think he'll come into this one prepared and just really outcoach Staley too. So those are my X factors. The game is in, LA, and they probably will split the season, but I don't know. I feel like this one is leaning towards the Broncos, and I feel like they're gonna be wanting it more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're only a game apart, so that does kind of scare me as well. The Chargers could win this game and be motivated to be right back into it. And that is, something that could happen. But yeah, I do agree that the Broncos defense has really stepped up the last few weeks. I do kind of see them causing Herbert some havoc. Their pass rush has been good. They've been creating turnovers at a great rate. So if they can create a turnover, I think that's how the Broncos win. And if they don't create turnovers, I think that's kind of how they lose. That's what happened against the Texans. That's what I said in the preview last week. And I think that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, I think Vance Joseph does have a pretty good plan, just because if anyone's smart is game planning for this game and looking at the Chargers receivers, they know that Mike Williams is down, Joshua Palmer's down, and Quinn Johnson's kind of struggling. So I do think that if Surtain mirrors Keenan, that's the smart move. And I hope that the Broncos do see that, because that would be a very smart move with the Chargers injuries. And I think that is something to look for. And I think the Broncos offense has just kind of been more consistent, and I think they're clicking. And I think against this Chargers defense, that will kind of be the difference. I think the Broncos would be able to kind of score more than usual.
Yeah, I think the Broncos will ultimately knock them off. And whatever odd reason, I know this is going to come down to a field goal. Vegas has it exactly right at the 3. I think they got the 3 wrong, and I think it should be favored towards the Broncos. But I think it's going to come down, because the Chargers will play with anyone. Even though they have injuries, they will play good enough to compete in any game. But they will lose that game because of consistency and boneheaded plays. And I think the Broncos will probably have the ball at the end of the game. And I think the Chargers will definitely give Russell Wilson a chance to, go down there and for a game-winning drive and knock them off.
All right, so you definitely don't have to watch this game then. We've got the exact outcome and everything for you. The Broncos are going to win by a Will Lutz field goal by 3. So don't watch this one. And for fantasy, you're starting Javonte and Sutton for the Broncos. I think they're both going to do really good this week. I think it's a great matchup for them, and I think Russ can be a start. And for the Chargers, you're firing up Herbert, Keenan. Obviously he's going to get so much volume. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say, I think I'm starting Eckler if you need in this matchup. I think it's just a really good matchup for Eckler. He's not going to get anything in the rushing aspect. I don't think he's going to get.
He could probably score. That's what you're hoping for. I don't think he'll get. His volume will be a touchdown, and Everett is a dart throw, I would think too.
Yeah, I think Eckler either gets like a 1-yard rushing touchdown, or he does a pretty good job in the receiving game. I think Eckler is startable if you can or if you need. And then Everett's always a good dart throw, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Seekers Bowl right here, and I'm going against my team. So that tells you how much confidence I have in them this year.
Yeah, I'll be at this one, so I am looking forward to seeing your boy Herbert and seeing hopefully Surtain pick him off. So that should be fun.
It'll be a good game. It'll be a good game.
And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Eagles are going to go into Dallas and play the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and the Cowboys are 3.5-point home favorites, and that's a pretty big line for the Cowboys, who just lost to the Eagles a few weeks ago. And yeah, these two played in Week 9, and it was a great game that came right down to the wire, the last play. And I said it, and right after that game was so close that I said I'm pretty confident that the Cowboys are going to win the next one when it's in Dallas. And so I'm just going to pre-pick it right now. I'm going to stick to that plan and pick the Cowboys to win this one. And I am pretty confident that they will win this game at home. They were so close that first time. They're clicking right now. But Dak and CD are both kind of playing it at MVP level right now. So I do think they're going to keep rolling. And the Eagles, coming off that kind of butt whipping from the Niners, I think they are going to continue to kind of get a reality check. And I think the Cowboys are going to overtake that first spot in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on this one. It just felt like the Cowboys, at home are just gonna want this one a little bit more than the Eagles. And it just seems like, they're gonna be pissed off, angry. You got freaking Micah Parsons. It just feels like he's gonna have a legacy game. Deron Bland could make a big pick or something. It just feels like this one's gonna just fall in the Cowboys' favor, because it just seemed like in the last game, the ball didn't bounce their way. But it's at home this time, and it just feels like it's going to be different. And it feels like the outcome is going to be different. And honestly, at this point, like I've been preaching, Dak is my MVP. He is just playing so electric. He is just putting up numbers. This Cowboys offense is scoring points. They scored 30 plus points last week against the Seahawks. They finally beat a team with a winning record, which is crazy to say when they're at 9-3. But yeah, this just has the Cowboys written all over it. And, like we said, the line is pretty favorable towards them. So, let's roll with the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Two kind of MVP candidates, kind of two MVP leaders right now at quarterback for both these teams. And yeah, I think the defense is the difference in this game. I think the Eagles secondary has kind of been a liability. Their corners have been a real mess, and CD completely got the best of them last time around, and I think that's going to continue. I think the Cowboys defense is just better than the Eagles, and I think the Cowboys weapons will be able to really kind of take advantage of that Eagles secondary, and the Eagles secondary is literally the reason I'm confident picking the Cowboys. So
oh yeah, no, the Eagles secondary has kind of been a little bit of a liability. Obviously, the Cowboys secondary last week got a little bit torched by Geno Smith, but it was a DK Metcalf legacy game last week. And that guy can definitely take over a game at any given moment. It just kind of was finally his breakout game. So I do think the Cowboys defense will improve from last week quite a bit. And yeah, like you said, the defense does feel like it'll end up being the difference in this game. And I'm confident in that Cowboys defense. They are electric. I'm confident in them, making the 1-2, how I feel like they will win the turnover differential in this one. And that should end up being the game.
And the Eagles and Cowboys are both going to be the higher scoring teams of the week, probably two of the top 4 or 5 highest scoring teams of the week. So you're starting pretty much every fantasy option in this game. Like last week against the 49ers, we said you start every option in the game for the Eagles because it's going to be such a high scoring game. And against the Seahawks, you said the same thing for the Cowboys because it's just high scoring games, and both of these two teams playing against each other is probably just going to be a high scoring shootout battle. So you target everyone in fantasy. I can't think of literally one person you would bench. It looks like Dallas Goedert's going to be back. So you start Goddard, you start Swift, you start Hurts, you start AJ Brown, and then Devontae Smith. You still start, but you kind of expect a little bit worse of a performance with Goddard coming in there. And then for the Cowboys, you start everyone. You start Dak, you start Pollard, you start CD, you start Jake Ferguson and Brandon Cooks. It's crazy. All these options are going to be eating.
Yeah, you start anyone who's rostered on these teams in your fantasy league, and you feel confident with it. And yeah, this should be our highest scoring game of the week, and we're gonna lock that in right now.
Yep, and I don't have the Cowboys schedule pulled up, but they have an incredibly hard schedule the next few weeks. I know they play the Eagles and the Bills and the Chiefs, so I'm just saying that drop the Cowboys defense. There's not going to be really a week that you're going to be playing the Cowboys defense and the Dolphins too. So that's the Cowboys rest of season. Their defense isn't going to be startable. So you can just drop them and clear that roster spot, and we'll get on to the first of the Monday night games. We have two Monday night games, both start at the exact same time. So that is going to be an interesting dynamic. I don't know whose thinking was to start both of these games at the same exact time, but we'll start with the first one. The Packers are going to go into New York and play the Giants, and the Packers are 6.5 point road favorites, and they're clicking right now. They're one of the hotter teams in football. They're really one of the better teams in football right now, and that sounds crazy to say, but shout out to Jordan Love. This guy right here is playing some beautiful, beautiful football. He's just playing in rhythm. He's just really just such a good quarterback. He just makes some crazy throws off platform. He makes good plays out of rhythm as well. That's kind of why he's playing so good right now. He's not only playing good in rhythm, but out of rhythm. He's making plays. He's facilitating, making something out of nothing, throwing balls into windows that really no one else can fit it into. So he's a really good quarterback, and he's going up against Tommy DeVito, Danny DeVito, and I don't know what the Giants are thinking starting him over Tyrod Taylor, but let's just say I think you can expect Tyrod Taylor to come in and DeVito to be benched at some point.
Yeah. This is just a game of honestly the quarterbacks, and they're obviously, I'm going to say the Packers overall roster is better, but it's just going to come down to the who's got the better quarterback, and it's that's the most important position on the field, and the Packers have got a substantially better one. And so I'm rolling with the Packers, and I'm feeling very confident the Packers should hit their line in this one. And yeah, I mean they should have fun. Their defense is really playing electric. Rashawn Gary is getting after the quarterback, so you can expect a sack or two from him. Yeah, the whole Packers, their young team is just clicking, and they're looking lethal, and they're ready for this. They're on a 3-game winning streak from 3-3 to 6-6, and they're hot and ready to make the playoffs. And the Giants, on the other hand, just kind of a rough team. You got a guy named Tommy DeVito starting, so I don't know. It's tough. They're gonna lean heavily upon Saquon. Hopefully, that's just what they're. And I'm honestly a little scared. I hope they just don't run him into the ground and just target him into the ground, because I don't want another Saquon Barkley injury. However, I do think Saquon will do good in this game. Fire him up from a fantasy aspect, and that is the only person I am starting on the Giants moving forward for the rest of the season. And then, of course, on the Packers, they actually have a decent amount of options. You're starting whoever. Aaron Jones is not back, right?
Who knows? They signed Kenyon Drake, so that's kind of like the thing that makes you think maybe he's not back and it will just be AJ Dillon. But I think you start whatever their running back is. If Aaron Jones goes, you start him. If AJ Dillon is the running back, you start him. I think you should start running back.
Yeah, you feel confident because their offense is just high powered. And yeah, you fire up Jay Love. At this point, if a lot of people the last couple of weeks picked up Jay Love, and he should be rostered in most leagues, and he's a very startable option now moving forward. Jaden Reed's a starting option. Christian Watson is a starting option. A couple of their other guys are just a little too scary. I mean, like Wicks is just borderline. Dubes is borderline. I mean, if you don't have better options, you could look that way. But I'd mostly look at Jaden Reed and Christian Watson right now.
Yeah, and monitor the Christian Watson injury. It's looking like Watson might not be able to go, so monitor him. Speaking of Christian Watson, shout out to him though, because he's kind of just become super solid. He's kind of become super tough the last few weeks, and he's kind of just a really good big body, like cold weather receiver, and he's kind of developed into that since we kind of called him out earlier in the year. He was kind of struggling. So shout out to Christian Watson. Hopefully he's healthy, and if he is, you fire him up. If not, then I think Dontavian Wicks is kind of a good 1-for-1 replacement, a good deep threat. So monitor that. And then I guess one more question for the Giants is Darren Waller is going to be back. So are you starting him with the DeVito?
Not in this one. Not in this one. Darren Waller hasn't really been consistent with any of the other quarterbacks this season, so I'm not there, and definitely not the game after him coming back from injury. So maybe if he proves something this week, you can maybe start him next week, but this week, nope.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Goddard, except for I think Goddard you could actually be pretty confident in starting. He has a good baseline, but Waller, you're not confident he plays 2 snaps without re-injuring. So Waller, you really have to just make him prove it before you start him.
100%. And now it's to another game will be going on at the same time.
Yeah, so we just talked about the 6:15 Monday night game. So now we'll get on to the other 6:15 Monday night game. Makes absolutely zero sense. So if you don't have YouTube multi-view, then I guess you're gonna have to choose one of these games to watch. But the Titans are gonna go into Miami and play the Dolphins, who are 13-point favorites. And if there's anything I know about this Dolphins team is that they love beating up on bad football teams. And it seems like we say this every single week. I don't know what this Dolphins schedule is, but I will lock this in as my Dolphins beating on a bad football team game of the week, because they do it every week. And I think they're going to continue it. And
Michael Myers bloody murder game of the week. And yeah, you lock it in. You feel confident in the Dolphins beating the Titans by 40. And it's just going to be a runaway game. So it won't really necessarily be close from the start of the game to the end of the game.
Yeah, our Michael Myers bloody murder game of the weeks have just turned into Dolphins games. Whatever Dolphins game it is, it's our new Michael Myers game. But yeah, I mean, the Titans played good against the Colts. Will Levis really did play good football. Henry, Hopkins both look good. So I do think they'll, maybe have some good highlight plays for their highlight reels in this one. They'll score some touchdowns against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are just too good. They're at home. I mean, I guess I'll shout out the Dolphins defense. Shout out to Vic Fangio. The defense is playing pretty good for the Dolphins. It's kind of been just not talked about how good their offense has been, but the Dolphins defense is pretty solid. Like I guess we'll transition into fantasy. I do think Derrick Henry will not really have too much of a dominant game on the ground. I think the Dolphins kind of hold him in check. I think he'll just have a solid game, but not a really dynamic game like he had last week. And I think Will Levis and Hopkins maybe connect for a touchdown, and that'll be kind of it. And then for the Dolphins, you're firing up everyone. You start both Mostert and Achane. Achane is the RB1 for this team, so you're really excited about him. He has all the upside in the world. You start to Tyreek, Waddle. You could probably expect another Tyreek touchdown, maybe 2.
Yeah, bloody murder game. That's all. That's really just my takeaway. They're gonna beat up on them, and just start every Dolphins option, because they'll probably, they like to score points. They like to be flashy. This game could easily be a 48-point game for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I guess not really too much to say on this one. It's going to be, how it's going to go, and you're excited about the Dolphins options. And yeah, fun going over all these games for Week 14. It's surreal that we're already in Week 14. It sounds crazy to say, but yeah, hopefully you had fun, Josh. Thanks for joining. Can we get a Stores hot take?
Yes, we can. We can end with a Stores hot take. This hot take is not going to be football related. It's going to be video game related, and I'm going to put a hot take on Fortnite, and the new season is hot trash, and that is my hot take right now. They never should have changed it from OG. Should have kept it a month longer. And if you're staying tuned for this hot take, we love you. Please make a comment. Let's keep these hot takes going.
I love it. And can we get a Stores? Yeah, here we go for Dak.
Here we go, Dak, baby. Woo!
He didn't get it. It's his cadence. Before he snaps the ball, he goes, "Yeah, here we go." You didn't get that?
I've heard that. I've heard him a couple times, but I respect Dak. I respect his hip shake. He's MVP. Let the man do what he wants. At this MVP level.
Yeah, it probably is MVP Dak right now. So yeah, I think he's gonna dominate the Eagles, and we'll see MVP Dak next week. So yeah, expect that. And thanks for tuning into the NFL Seekers. Like, subscribe if you liked, and yeah, peace.
Peace.